When we're talking about the different patterns and pains and tensions we carry from the past, our old childhood traumas and wounds, there is a common thread through all of that that unites all of these different wounds that I think is an important thing to recognize, and it is one of the core things we have to overcome in our recovery process. It's what I call the big lie. What happens when a child is 1, 2, 3, 4 with the distress of the big people? How often does a child hear, "You are really making me mad. I am so disappointed in you." Or, "You've made me so happy." Or, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." There is an endless variety of different ways in which big people inform a little person that the big person's emotional world has now changed because of them. Something that this 3-year-old said or did, I am now either not talking to you, punishing you, yelling at you, hitting you, just cocking the eyebrow, or letting you know very directly that I'm now in a different state and it's your fault. This is the core thread that runs through all childhood wounding. It is 100% false. That's why I call it the big lie. It's not just a little bit false, or maybe a little bit true but mostly false. It's crucial to recognize that communication is 100% false. A little person's body cannot make a big person's body feel anything. We as adults have brought all of that with us from our past, from our own childhoods, the echoes of all of these tensions and patterns. And what happens is, just like the rest of life, there are triggers, and something in us that we are carrying arises to the surface. Our tendency, unfortunately, so much of the time, is to blame the messenger. And the easiest ones to blame are the little ones. They don't have any defense against that blame. If I try to do that to another adult, I'm making some pushback. It may be the source of a whole lot of relational difficulties, and it is, but I'm going to get pushback from the world, unlike this little thing that I think my job is to control, and I have now identified that I don't like what's happening, and therefore it's their fault. If they would just behave better, if they would just listen better, if they would just do what I said, then I would have a relief of my emotional suffering of the moment. So when we receive this message in so many small and sometimes large ways, we need to be aware and really come to feel inside what happens inside a little person's body when we receive that message. When we are that small and this big thing that we are dependent on, that we are hoping is going to be safe and loving and smiling and taking care of us, and that's our need, our want, our deserving, and our hope. And instead, all of a sudden there's a shift. They're not like that anymore, and I'm being told very clearly it's my fault. what happens inside a little person's body is, oh, wow, okay, all right. Oh, I am in charge of all of these big people's bodies. I'm in charge of how they feel. Oh boy, okay. I have to start watching now very closely and carefully, very vigilantly. I have to be aware all the time of what's going on around me and how they're doing, because holy moly, I'm in charge of all of that. This isn't running through a 3-year-old's brain, because the brain isn't developed in that type of thinking for another couple of decades. That's what's happening in the body. At a feeling level is a sense of utter overwhelm. And that message gets repeated day in and day out in so many ways. As soon as something arises in an adult that they are not consciously attending to and owning as theirs, it is going to immediately pass in blame to the small ones. That communication is at the core of all wounding. I'm upset, it's your fault. I'm not in my best place as an adult right now, and it's because of you, little one. The resultant place of the big lie landing inside a little body is there is first an emotional response that's healthy and sane. When we get blamed inappropriately, there's a protective response that fires. It's what we end up calling anger. When we are abandoned at a young age, when somebody just turns and walks away, there is a feeling of grief and loss and loneliness and pain. When we're hurt, there are tears, and when we have losses, there are tears. If the communication is very clearly, I'm not interested in what you're feeling. I'm not interested in how any of what I'm saying or doing is landing on you. You get your eyes out here, buddy. You start watching. I will tell you by how happy I am or not what you need to want, what you should feel, what feelings you have inside that are important, if any, and which ones aren't. I will tell you all that. So keep your eyes out here. Keep your attention out here. Keep your vigilance out here, because I'm going to register for you by my emotional state how well you're doing, how enough you are, what pieces of you should attend to and connect to, and which ones you should disconnect from. So when we have a natural emotional response at age 1, 2, 3 to the message of blame, all of the emotional response that we're having, if that doesn't have a safe place to land, if that's first and foremost going to come up and out of the body until we learn very quickly, oh, can't go there. If we have an anger response to what is coming at us and that comes up and out, it might go well. Chances are most of the time it won't. So we learn very quickly, this is a part of me I cannot listen to. I cannot stay connected to the place in me that registers a sane response to what's happening out here. So we have to begin the disconnection process. That's what trauma is. Trauma is that distance from self. Trauma is the disconnection from who I really am, what I'm really feeling, and turning my attention outward to start hyper-monitoring my environment, because it's going to register for me whether I'm okay or not, whether I'm safe or not, whether I'm enough or not. And it's going to mirror to me which places in me I'm allowed to connect to and which places I'm not. And most of the time, the message is, be in your happy place, kid. The rest of it, we're not so interested in. To the degree that that's what's happening, we are receiving that big lie over and over again. And the consequence is hypervigilance, which is another name for that is worry. Worry is about our hypervigilant, outwardly turned attention to hyper monitoring our environment because we have been taught and told a million different ways that's my responsibility. I control all of that. Then, flash forward. What happens when we are then becoming big people and having big people relationships? These are these inappropriate tethers and the big lie and inappropriate responsibility is what ends up infecting our adult relationships. We get into problems of blame and shame and who did what to whom, and we are making each other all the time responsible for our feelings, and we are making ourselves responsible for their feelings in ways that often are completely inappropriate and not real. We're carrying stuff from our past. What a 3-year-old witnesses when that kind of a thing happens is not something that they caused. What we witnessed when we were little was stuff that they brought within them before we were ever born, coming to the surface, getting missed, not appropriately and consciously attended to, and then spilling out onto us. This is a crucial and essential piece of recovery because there is an enormous amount of guilt and shame that we carry that we were the ones that were responsible and that what we saw was caused by us. Sure seem that way. If I move this way, they get happy. If I move this way, they get sad. If I say this, they get upset. If I say this, they like it. We learn very quickly that it sure looks like I've got the tether strings and the responsibility for all of that. Part of our deep recovery process and coming back into a loving relationship with self is getting out from under the big lie, is getting it down in our bones. Wait a minute. I didn't do any of that. No matter what I said or did, I didn't make that happen. I didn't ever do that. It is an essential piece of recovery. We cannot get back to our deep sense of self-love until we appropriately let our little person inside off the hook for what was never theirs. It was a lie. It's 100% false. There was a wonderful quote that I ran across. It was a lengthy interview in a publication with Tom Hanks back at the time that he was doing the Mr. Rogers movie, and it was after that. And the basic gist of the article was trying to examine the idea of how much he was like this in real life, things like that. But there was a part in the article when they were talking about child rearing, and because that was obviously such a topic with Mr. Rogers. And Tom Hanks made a incredibly on target and wonderful statement that encapsulates all this. He said, the number one thing that a child most needs to hear growing up is, you can't hurt my feelings. When I read that, I was like, bingo, that's it. That's the counter to the big lie. The big lie is, you're changing my feelings in every minute of every day. So get with the program. You're in control. You can't hurt my feelings allows a child's body to completely relax and begin to recognize, yes, there may be some reactions out here, but I'm getting the very clear message it's not my fault. It's essential, too, that we try to go back and do this repair work. If we have children, no matter the age, the repair of this injury and wound is incredibly important. To say, you know what, that wasn't yours to carry. To listen to all of the different ways that might have happened, and to be there as a receptacle for the sane energetic emotional response that would have happened back then had it been safe. We need to be able to allow them to discharge that emotional pain while we hold the bucket for that. That was our job back then. If we missed it, we can still go back and do that. So correcting the big lie in ourselves first and foremost, and then in the ways that we treat our young, is an essential piece of recovery, if not the core of recovery, because it's the thread that connects all of the wounds. They're all just versions of the big lie.